What's going on, everybody? My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and today I'm going to be bringing you more of the Silmarillion Winter Tournament coverage. We're going to be doing the entirety of this series. It is a best of 3 game, so yeah, without further ado, let's jump into it. The first army we're going to look at today is from the purple team. That is going to be the House of Haleth, commanded by Steward of Dale. He's got some Warda of Brethil here. He's also got some Mardrot of Malduin. For those of you unfamiliar, these are a detachment of a mounted version, and they are a harassment javelin troop. So quite nice. They're also a spear hybrid unit, so you can use them to body block cavalry charges. Some Fryswear of Brethil, sort of a similar thing, except they are armed with bows and are a good deal lighter. Another unit there of the Mardrot, and then a third unit of the dismounted Mardrot for good measure. We've got a number of Rigswear on the field today. A nice little unit. They have a Precursor Javelin, does a little bit of extra damage, and their charge bonus is tops. And if that wasn't enough, they're relatively cheap, and they are relentless and unbreakable. So there's a lot of utility wrapped into this little unit, but the big drawback, of course, is that they are quite lightly armored and unshielded. And their skill is not super high in addition to, as they only simply wield a single weapon. So they're not a dual-wielding unit, which will help bump that melee skill up a little bit and perhaps make them a bit too good. So yeah, lots of utility wrapped up into the Rigswear, but they do, of course, have some well-contoured weaknesses as well. Steward of Dale is going to be bringing 3 units of the Dour Warda of Ethel Brandir. Real scary-looking rush army here. The Dour Warda have some pretty nasty javelins. Theirs are going to be armor-piercing. They sort of sit in this weird middle ground between being a harassment javelin and a hunter javelin. They do have higher base damage, not quite as high as regular hunter javelins. They are considered infantry for the purposes of statistics, and they also only have 2 ammo. So bring in 3 of them today. That's pretty nasty. They've got axes as well, which brings their base damage up quite high. Also have some Huskarlar here hiding in the brush. These are medium axemen. They also have some throwing axes that they can cast before they run into combat. So yeah, not a lot of cavalry here potentially. I think there's a little bit more hiding out here from Steward of Dale over on the other side. We have some more Fryswear. Got some dismounted Waltrider Dragoons are able to hide. We've also got 2 companies here of the Waltriders, and then a second company of the Warda of Brethil. So a nice little hiding force here. Perhaps a little bit obvious that he's got something hidden, but I think that they're probably going to rush today because this battle is, at least relative to our last one, mercifully short. So I'm thinking that they're going to be rushing here, so this is actually kind of sneaky. Not going to be really enough time to consider, what's coming your way. You're just going to have to deal with it, and then suddenly there's another 5 units coming out of nowhere. In any case, moving on now to the Guarded Realm of Doriath, being played by Captain Gervais. It's kind of interesting. Everyone gets to play their favorite faction today. Yeah, have a ballista here. Always nice to have the ballista. In the new patch, the ballista has changed to have a lot more ammunition. It's quite nice as a anti-artillery weapon. It can also be used against elephants and other large targets, so that's a lot more of a shot in the dark since they're a good deal faster than artillery pieces that you can potentially prey upon. We also brought here some Sword Host of Region. I imagine they've got their armor upgrade. They're going to be backed up with some Spear Host of the Girdle. I've got some Rangers of the Girdle out front here. Potentially 2 units? No, maybe just 1 unit. Yeah, 2 units right here. Whenever that's Wardens of the Girdle. So Rangers, we got some Wardens of the Girdle, which are an infantry unit. They happen to have a bow, whereas the Rangers are a detachment that's a little bit more range dedicated. You can think of them as sort of an alternate detachment of the Wardens of the Girdle, lower stats overall. Shield Bearers of Region, probably with their armor upgrade. Some of the sturdier units from Doriath are, of course, their spear and shield units, best suited to be on the front lines. Axemen of the Girdle, light infantry here, quite nice with their axes. They can throw axes before they get into combat. Of course, it's Doriath or the Sindar. They like to use axes and spears. Got some spears with the Girdle in the back. They are harassment jabs. More of the Shield Bearers of Region, catapult here as well. And that's, oh wow, 2 artillery pieces from Doriath. And each of these catapult crews are going to be crewed by Axe Guard of Region. And you can see that in the name there. It's a little thing that we've done moving forward, just UI-wise, to help make things a bit more transparent when you're building your armies. Anyway, more Spear Host of the Girdle there. We have some Donath and Mablung. And then out in the back here, we have some fully upgraded Warriors of Region. Now, the Warriors of Region have undergone some pretty substantial changes. I'll go over those in brief here. They are considered to be now like a lighter infantry, but you can't upgrade them twice, so they'll go from, I think, 5 to 9, which overall ends up being higher, or maybe they go from like 6 to 10. I think it's more like 6 to 10. And they end up having more armor overall than what they had previously, which capped out at 9, but you have to invest a little bit more. As a bit of a trade-off, they also combine that heavy armor, if you pay for it, with the melee stats, and especially the melee defense, and the movement speed of lighter troops. So it's a nice little thing there that sort of makes the Doriath Axe regiments a little bit better than most of the other factions. It's just a cool way of doing it without stats. So this is their sort of lower end, or not lower end, but like more unarmored variant here. You can see the Axe Guard of Region. More of a medium infantry unit at this point, but they are exceptionally good at grinding chaff. You can see they've got that extra little bit of like antlers coming off, which is going to emulate Thengol once you see his model. But yeah, the Axe Guard of Region, excellent at grinding up chaff, really good charge bonus as well, as Axe units generally have. Yeah, they of course pay for that with a little bit less melee defense than say a sword or a spear. Axemen of the Girdle here as well, another company of. We have some Tyr and Leisdanen with their ability to deploy stakes, now something that they are able to do. Tyr and Leisdanen are the legendary company for Doriath. They are sort of slightly more base well-armored variant than, say, the Axe Guard. They also have less men in the unit, and they cannot upgrade their attack, which the other Doriath units can do actually for quite cheap. But, as this is a unit that is intended to combat the Sons of Feanor, at least in lore, that's sort of the justification we're using for them, they can deploy stakes, and they also have the Shield Breaker trait. In fact, they're the only unit who has that, and it will allow them to ignore half of shield value from the front when tossing their throwing axe projectiles. So that's pretty damn cool. Moving on now to the third and final purple team player. We have Alexander 10Q. He's going to be playing as the Elves of the Falas. You can see the new armor upgrade model here for the Marksmen of Baelor. And this is going to be them with that upgrade. I think he's got 2 companies of them, potentially. Yeah, 1, 2. He's also got a sturdy phalanx here, composed of the best that the Elves of the Falas have to offer. Now, probably wouldn't guess it from looking at the last couple of units, but the Elves of the Falas are generally a lot more lightly armed than many of the other factions, especially the Noldor. But he's really put all of his eggs into one basket here. We've got the Aran Kier Lim, and they're going to be mixed in with the Nobles of Baelor, who, similarly to the Marksmen, also have a armor upgrade. And behind them, you can see some of the new models here for the Rangers of Brythombar. These are light bowmen. There's going to be 2 of them there. We've also got the Spearmen of Brythombar over here. They've become a little bit lighter. I think they've exchanged some armor for an additional point of melee defense, which is nice. Very, very quick, especially the Elves of the Falas. A lot of our light infantry have been made a hell of a lot faster, especially some of the Spearmen. And the Spearmen of Brythombar also have additional bonuses against cavalry. So you can think of them, once they've expended their precursor javelins, as being a sort of moving screen that's going to help you zone out enemy cavalry and support your own cavalry, which we're going to be getting on to here. Second company there of the Spearmen of Brythombar. Then we've got 2 units of the Scouts of Eglaris. One of the big things that's happened to higher-end melee cavalry in this mod is that they've gotten an extra point of damage against horsemen. And that's going to help factions that don't have as many cavalry options against, say, the Sons of Feanor. And in particular, the mounted company of Hurufin, who are very, very good, very, very cost-effective, and extremely well-armored, and with their javelins can really pose a lot of problems. They're very much a supremacy unit, and now in close quarters, units like the Scouts of Eglarist will be able to do a little bit better against them. It's not going to be overwhelming, as of course the Sons of Feanor are the premier cavalry faction, and that's where you want their strengths to lie. But it does help a little bit in tandem with some of the other buffs to the lighter infantry, especially on the Falas side of things. But that is going to do for the purple team. Let's move on now to the red team. The first player we have is the House of Finarfin, being played by Lord of Belegost. And he is very, very close to the Philothrum here. And this Philothrum army actually feels a little bit small. I think I'm going to miss some here. Yeah, okay. Sorry, we'll go back to the Philothrum and then we'll move on to Lord Belegost. Mariners of Earendil. This is going to be the Legendary Company. Extremely potent inspiration effect. It's +2 in 100 meters, which is the largest spanning inspiration effect in the mod currently. I've got a couple of units here, the Marines of Eglarest, 1-2. And then we've got some more Doriath units over here, Sword Host and Warriors of Region. I think that should do it for the purple team, finally. There we go. Moving on now to Lord of Belegost. He's quite close to the falas army. He's got some really nasty tools here that can potentially be a problem for them. A couple of marksmen of Nargothrond on the front lines, 1-2. Also got a couple archers of Talat Dirnan, so a nice strong archer corps. And they're going to be backed up with a horde of swordsmen of Talat Dirnan. They are armed with precursor javelins, and in great numbers like this, they can potentially be very, very scary. And then, third line is going to be composed of bridge wards of Nargothrond. It's looking like at least 2 regiments of them there. And then finally, spearmen, or rather wardens of Nargothrond, probably with their armor upgrades. And then we have the Arquenian Mormagilwa, one of the few more offensively oriented units for the House of Finarfid. The Arquenian Mormagilwa, or the Knights of the Black Sword, are the personal retinue of Turin Turambar, the man himself, who unfortunately caused the fall of Nargothrond, but that's neither here nor there. This unit has particularly strong bonuses against monsters, so I believe they get a +4. They're also relentless, which means that monsters are not going to be able to stagger them. So if monsters get entangled, one of their big defenses with infantry is their ability to just be disruptive. They move around, they knock people over, they stagger them in large numbers with their wide attack radius and things like that. Not so with the Arquenian Mormagilwa. They are immune to flinching, and they will just truck through any monsters that dare get close to them. And finally, we have the Sartor Finderato. We've got the older model here for Turin Turambar, something that we do plan to change in the next little while. But Sartor Finderato are, as the name might suggest, the personal retinue of Finrod Felagund, and that's sort of the dichotomy here between the Nargothrond at the time of Finrod and Nargothrond versus the time of Turin's supremacy there. Much more offensively oriented, willing to go to war, a little bit more lightly armored, less defensive than, say, units like the Sartor Finderato and other such things. Moving on now, we have the second red team player. That's going to be the Easterlings being played by y2k86 from the Guardians of Chaos clan. He's brought some Fangs of the Faithless here, as we'll remember from the last game. They are the only foot bow unit for the Easterlings. Got some Halberdiers of Lothland here as well. They've got a little bit of a cosmetic facelift over their current iteration on the live build. And you can sort of see that there in the helmets. There's like ornate kind of filigrees on the inside there, and there's like suns and like roses and stuff carved in there. It's just a nice little detail for when you get nice and close up to them. Whole bunch of Halberdiers here, a big golden glorious legion from the tribe of Boar. Halberdiers in the front line, Wardens of Lothland in the back, and we've got some Ambarone Honor Guard as well, so very heavily armored. A couple of Salamandrine Guard, who are very nice for, say, fighting monsters or being an anti-armor deterrent. But they've also got a little bit of utility wrapped up in their arrows, which will damage morale, and they do so quite significantly. Hrotani Nomads here, 2 units of the Hrotani Nomads, and there may be some more hidden units up in front here, probably from the Ulfang clan, who are a little bit lighter. Heavy infantry are not able to hide in woods in our mod, so if there are some hidden units, they're definitely going to be in this area up front. Moving on now to the third and final player, we have the Dominion of Tolin Gaurhoth being played by Buzzard, who's actually my teammate, but he's subbing in for one of the people who was not able to make it. Here you're going to see the new armor model for the Wolfguard unit, so the entire Gijak Scouts clan, when they upgrade their armor, will get this sort of crackling, fiery, sorceress-looking armor with those burnt skulls and stuff on the back. It looks quite cool. There's a mix here of Wolfguard and Chosen, so a very formidable front line. It's an interesting approach to take with Tolin Gaurhoth, who traditionally lean a little bit more into the cavalry, but that being said, you can bring some pretty serious numbers. So if you decide to go like infantry focused with Tolin Gaurhoth, it's something that can work. It certainly can, especially when you have a front line of the Gijek Scout units. The Long Fangs are like not bad, a whole bunch of them here, and then of course the Ash Priests are able to mix it up in close quarters pretty well. That being said, hopefully he's got a strong cavalry contingent or some missile and artillery units for utility. More Hishbukraz units here. We got some Hishbukraz warbands, some Hishbukraz hunters who are light archer, a bunch of blood drinkers here, so very, very infantry focused. But Toll is quite cheap, so he's able to kind of round that out with some Gijek Skeraz units. So these ones don't have their armor upgrade. We're going to have two of them here. We've also got some Throng Sheik Wolfborn, who are the sort of premier cavalry unit, and they can do some pretty serious work. They used to be 2 HP, now they're just a single HP unit, but they've got a hefty, hefty charge bonus and some really strong bonuses against cavalry, and they are, of course, the most heavily armored units that Tolan Gauerhof can bring to bear. We've also got some Hishbukraz Zagulkalab units here. These are going to be harassment javelins. They also deal damage to morale, as much of Tolan Gauerhof's roster is focused around fire and sorcery in some way or another. And we've got some more of the Hishbukraz units here. These are going to be the attachment version. And speaking of fire and sorcery, we've got the Mangonel. I think this is an older version of our patch. This is not quite the Mangonel that you're going to be seeing moving in to the final release, but it is still a very deadly artillery piece, especially against bunched up factions such as Doriath's deployment over there, or the Philothrum. Although that being said, they are kind of out of range on the other side of the map. But that's going to do for the visible forces here. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Hope you guys enjoy. And so, right out of the gate, we're going to see the Easterlings here take the initiative, with the Heroic Nomads moving forth, and I wonder what they're looking like they want to prey upon. Now, not a lot of skirmish power on the Doriath side of things. Of course, there's a unit here of the Rangers and a couple of units on the Wardens of the Girdle, but the Wardens do have very limited ammunition pools, so that's something that Doriath can only keep up for so long. Catapult already winding up. Hold on, let's just go ahead and turn the sound here down just a little bit. Makes things a little bit easier when it comes to hearing me once battle has been joined. The catapult's winding up. Big ugly fireball being lobbed downwind against Finarfin, who are kind of asking for it, and that's definitely going to claim some lives here. Looks like it maybe clipped one of the bridge wardens. He's going after the R20, and one of the knights there is going to get fricasseed. Belegost is going to see it and adjust accordingly. It looks like we've got a little bit of an advance here against Steward of Dale. So, oh wow, the whole host of the Witchfort charging forward into this area, coming right for Steward of Dale, who is... It's looking like he's trying to like organize things here. So like the rapidness of this advance maybe caught him a little bit off guard, but now Tolan Gauderhof is pulling back. I would think that this would be a good time to just kind of be aggressive and try and just overwhelm these units here. Might be able to... I think he'd be able to push quite comfortably through something like the Friceware, and possibly even rout them off, just because they are spearmen, but oh, nasty! Some of that Mangonel fire coming through, you can see just bouncing off the ground, impacting up the side of the mountain. More units now being brought forth. Darwarda, and this is looking like it's going to become a bit of a skirmish fight here. The Tolan Gauderhof, what initially looked to be a fairly organized advance, is kind of devolving into a little bit of chaos here, as the host of the Witchfort sort of swarms around this hill and is trying to figure out what exactly it is that they want to do. Doriath is going to have something to say about it. Spear host of the Girdle here are winding up with those jabbies, definitely going to do a lot of damage to these Rotani Nomads if y2k isn't able to pull them out of there in time. At the moment, it's just sort of threatening. So some more of these units have come out of hiding, which is going to be enough, I think, to maybe make the Tolan Gauderhof army think twice. On that ballista going off, I have no idea what it's going for. Probably the Mangonel. Oh, let's see if it hits it. Looks like it is. Going to light that one on fire. 2 of the 3 Mangonels have been brought low. And the other one is at about 35% damage. So getting it behind that hill, definitely going to help. But you have to be very, very aware of your range and your spacing on the Mangonel, otherwise you're not really going to get a lot of value off of it. Meanwhile, over here on the other side of the map, Oh, nasty. So the Spearman of Berthalmbar trying to move forward, get a little bit of initial skirmish done. Marksmen of Nargothrond have taken some losses, but they have just absolutely shredded those 2 units of Light Spearmen who came forth here. Rangers of Berthalmbar in support, probably able to deal a decent amount of damage to the Marksmen of Nargothrond. Belegost looks like he's going to pull them back. It's not a bad idea. The Archers of Talabherin are a little bit better suited for this kind of fight. And they're just skewering these poor Spearmen of Berthalmbar. And that initial falas advance has been rebuffed. But it seems like this is where the real party is. So the Hishbukraz opening fire on the dismounted Mardrots. And it looks like the Thrangshik Wolfborn are going to use the morale debuff from the Hishbukraz ammunition, plus a nasty shock charge to potentially try and break their way through this very thin rainbow line. And those Mardrot are really not going to have a very good time. Thrangshik Wolfborn taking a little bit of losses, but the Gijek has chosen are nearby, and they're going to be able to support quite nicely. Dawarwarda, all of this nasty stuff coming in here. You can see some javelins being tossed from the Rigswear. Not going to do a lot to the Wolf Guard, as we do have that armor upgrade. And things are actually looking pretty nice here for Tolan Gauderhof. That very elite front line has kind of crashed in here, and this Haladin force is looking like it's struggling a little bit to deal with the Thrangshik Wolfborn here, able to push their way through. And this is going to be an ugly charge. Oh, that's going to hurt. Those Rigswear just getting absolutely devastated. About 30 or 40 models there going down in rapid succession. Now there's a big old hole here. Yep, that 1-2 punch from the Hishbukraz plus the Thrangshik was able to rout off the dismounted Mardrot. And now there's a big old line, break in the line here. And Tolan Gauderhof is going to be able to mercilessly exploit that. Got the Mangonel crew. Looks like the Mangonel ended up being sniped out by the Doriath Ballista. But things are going pretty well here. Hishbukraz Ash Priests able to, I'm not sure what they're shooting at actually. The Thrangshik Wolfborn probably need to get pulled out of here though. So this is a little bit of a waste of their talents here. Still 19 of them remaining, so he's going to go for that nice hammer and anvil charge here. Get into the back of the Dawarwarda, and that's going to be ugly. So the Thrangshik have, at this point, almost paid for themselves with the amount of chaos that they've been able to cause in the Haladin lines here. Arrows and javelins just skewering the Rigswear, and that second line of the Haladin has basically been swept away. Gijek Skedaz now charging in, and they're going to be able to weather the arrows and the javelins quite well while they deal with the rest of the Rigswear. And now it's really down to this line of Axemen here, the third unit of Dawarwarda and the 2 companies of the Huskarlar. Over here, things are not looking great. Looks like we have some hidden Easterling units that came forth. Ravagers of Himmering, they're lock morale, nasty charge bonus, and they're actually overwhelming the Haladin here. So the men of Brethil are really not having a good time. Meanwhile, over here, the rest of the Tolan Gauderhof army has engaged part of Doriath, and it's looking like they're winning in places, but definitely need some reinforcements, and reinforcements are thankfully forthcoming. I don't think I saw the Spearmen of Lothland, but they are an inspirational unit, and they are, of course, ahead of the Spearmen. And they're going to charge in here now. Steward is going to activate some of his hidden cavalry, and that might prove to be decisive because of how much of the Easterling cavalry is committed over on the other side. That being said, the Salamandrian Guard are here. They could go toe-to-toe with the Wolf Riders relatively well. There's still another line of these halberdiers back here, and they're sort of facing off against Doriath. Now, they need to be brought forward because, as you can see, Rex is already beginning to shift troops over here, and that's going to be able to reinforce these lines and then slow down the impetus and all that momentum that the red team has gained so far. The red team is now doing the same. Thrangshik Wolfborn, along with some reinforcements coming over here, and looks like they're going to be able to route. I think I saw some routing, some Freiswear being routed. There's some Spear Host here, and these Gijek Skedaz are desperately going for that rear charge. I think they're going to get it. Yep, they definitely will. And some of those Warda may end up breaking here as a result. Yep, things are looking pretty dire, at least until the rest of the Doriath host is able to bring their weight to bear. Falas kind of hard switching, while the Nargothrond army is just kind of sitting here. Now, this is a bit of a problem in these 3v3 games. The way that I have seen a lot of the tactics in the games play out is that people will hard switch to one of your teammates, crush them, and then they have an almost unassailable advantage in numbers. Now, Lord Belegost already beginning to move out. but this probably needed to be done a little bit sooner, just so that the Philothrum didn't even have a chance to countenance, you know, rushing across the field, because now they're almost all the way to Doriath, and the Nargothrond army is really just playing catch-up here, so a little bit of an issue with that. And then there's more units here that I think need to be brought forward in order to staunch the bleeding a little bit and cut off that flow of reinforcements over here. So that's a little bit of a big mistake here on the part of the red team. Great motivation, or not motivation, but like great initiative here early on, but now because reinforcements were not really forthcoming, there's a lot of bad things beginning to happen here. Now that would be the Ash Priest tossing in their jabbies, or their slingshots rather. But yeah, now this whole kind of section of the army is a little bit bottled up and a little bit isolated. Now they've managed to win over here. They basically crushed the men of Breath Hill, with the exception of, you know, a few Huskarlar regiments here that could quite swiftly be dealt with, but I don't think Buzzard kind of sees the danger that they're posing necessarily. And he's now pulling out a lot of his long fangs instead of dealing with this threat over here. So this needed to be shut down for sure. Like, finish what you start here, kill them off as quickly as you're able to, and then just, you know, send some troops, send something over here to sort of staunch the bleeding and just get in the way. Meanwhile, his allies should be moving forward here and putting the pressure on to the Doriath army, because over here, yeah, with the Philothrum and everything else, and Nargothrond is just so far behind, just playing catch-up at this point. And Toland Gaudhoth is just about to be completely overwhelmed. Now there are some hidden units over here, Forcers of Nimbrethil. Got a cool little model too as well, a little bit different from what they previously were. But they're not really like an infantry killing thing, they're more of an anti-cavalry screen, they're quite quick. They have good charge values, and of course they are two-handed spears, but it will be enough to delay, you know, some of these reinforcements. And again, you know, we're stopping here. We need to not stop. We need to just push over here. There's a lot of chaos. You know, we can put so much pressure on these units, but it's the passivity, unfortunately, of these two players that is kind of leading to a very ugly situation here that I think you can start to see forming on the horizon. So if we look at the differences here, it's still quite even in terms of percentages. There is a lot of routing here from the Toland Gaudhoth army because, again, they don't like being flanked. Nobody does. And Toland Gaudhoth doesn't have the greatest infantry morale and just infantry quality overall. All these units are just kind of like bunched up here and able to be, you know, shut down and disrupted by just a couple small units of cavalry. And at the same time, all these units are going to crush inwards. And of course, this huge blob here is going to disintegrate in very, very short order, and indeed they are. Look at that. I think Buzzard kind of sees, you know, what's going on here. The Salamandering Guard doing their best to cover the retreat, but that's a lot of breaking right off the bat, and this is just some not the greatest placement. So again, they started off really, really strong in this match, but it's just those little things, you know, the spacing, the timing, and now the purple team is able to kind of bring it back here. Also, a little bit of friendly fire there from their own javelins. It's certainly not going to help the morale of these wavering Scarahai Longfangs. Yeah, if they were just able to keep up the pressure here, they could have just kind of crushed in from two sides and just squeezed the Doriath and the Falas armies between them. But unfortunately, that's not really what's happening here. Still relatively even in terms of percentages, but yeah, Well-Tried Dragoons here have very much paid for themselves. They will expire, faced with the Salamandering Guard just kind of on their own. Runs of the Girdle coming under fire from the Salamandering Guard. Somebody's general is running. I think that would be Steward of Dales, which means that there is the possibility of some of these Paladin units routing off to get into an ugly position. But let's see here. Blood Drinkers have come back. And yeah, now this is becoming an issue here. Instead of, you know, keeping everybody in one place, trying to finish what he started, now the Toland Gaudhoth army is really in a lot of trouble. And I don't know where the Ash Priests are hanging out. I don't know if he managed to save them or what's going on there. But if Toland Gaudhoth doesn't have a general, things are going to be really ugly. So we got some throwing axes being tossed there by the Scarahai Longfangs. Not the greatest angle for them because there is a big other unit of Longfangs kind of in the way. Well, if they can get some good tosses here into the Walsh Riders from close range, they'll cut through these medium armored units quite quickly. Let's see what's going on over here. Doriath sort of setting up a bit of a perimeter here, preventing anybody from getting in there. Now they've got what remains of Toland Gauderhof kind of locked in a bubble, and the remains of the Easterlings and the Nargothrond armies are pushing forward here. And there's actually a decent amount here, spoilers, but the despoilers would have been really useful on the front lines earlier because they have that fear effect, right? So getting in there with the rest of the army while they were still winning and still, inflicting that sort of losing combat morale penalty onto their enemies, then the despoilers would have been excellent there. They could have routed their way through here, especially some of the more lightly armed and less elite Doriath chaff. But now, yeah, Wolfguard here might be able to save what's left of some of Steward's army, question mark. Well, countercharge here from what remains of the Huskarlar. This is very bloody for both sides, but I think ultimately the purple team ended up kind of coming out on top. And they have a nice positional advantage here. Warband of Lothland needs some support. I don't know what the rest of these halberdiers here are really doing, just kind of hanging out. So it seems like y2k is now starting to move forward, but yeah, the Warband needed some support a little bit earlier. They're sort of being slowly wrapped around here. And this is a really bad situation because Toland Gauderhof is kind of on its last legs, and Doriath and their allies might potentially be able to kind of completely envelop the Easterling line here, unless, of course, Nargothrond is able to get over here. And it doesn't look... Yeah, they're still just kind of over here, oblivious to, the terrible defeat being inflicted upon their allies. There's some scouts of Eglorest, of course, harassing them, preventing them from easily sort of seeing this fight off. Company of Prince Gwyndor, didn't see them. A fear-causing unit would have been really nice to have over here as well. And Swordsman of Taladyrn, yeah, they're just still out of the fight, and now it looks like the red team is going to be just defeated in detail here. So the halberdiers doing really well. Like I said, they're some of the finest halberdier regiments in the game, probably the best as it happens, but there's just not enough of the Easterlings to go around here. They've got a decent amount of some hidden units, I think, still remaining, some of the despoilers and things like that. Fangs of the Faithless are back here, Salamandrian Guard. They have the ability to sort of hold out for a while here, but not for that long. Here in Lysdanen now, getting in behind the halberdiers, and this is going to be really, really ugly. And if just Nargothrond could just come forward, if they could have come forward yesterday, but they're just sitting there skirmishing. Oh, it's just painful. It's painful to watch. We're going to go ahead and kick things into full speed here. Finally, some detachment, like a significant force is kind of coming forward to aid them, but it's not going to be enough here. And the Easterlings are already engaging, so I think what probably should have been done is, delaying this engagement a little bit more until Nargothrond was able to come forward and be a little bit more supportive. We got over here Fangs of the Faithless. I think they probably still have full ammo, so if they're going to shoot into the Wardens of the Girdle here, they're going to turn this fight around in like 2 seconds. Hopefully they do. Oh, well, maybe they won't. Over here, they're pushing forward. The halberdiers are doing well. The Tyrion and Lysdanen are going to get some nasty downhill shots here, and there's just so much. Like, the Easterlings are holding out, but they need their support, and their support is kind of dawdling and has been for the last little while here. There's this big old block here. I would probably just put my wardens and stuff in the way, and then use my wardens and my pikemen in the way of these units here, and then just move the rest of my army over here to kind of grind it out with what remains of the falas. Because I think if Nargothrond was able to just get in here with all those swordsmen and everything else, this fight can still be turned around. Reinforcing the front line here. These halberdiers need to be brought forward to maybe turn this engagement a little bit more in their favor, but again, it's a timing thing for sure. These swordsmen should definitely be coming over here to help and use their javelins to kind of focus on some of these warrior regiments in particular, things like that, right? And then using your heavily armored, very stubborn units. I don't know what's happening here, a little bit of a micro mistake or something on the part of Lord of Belegost. But they're instead going to toss their javelins into here. I get the reason why you'd want to do this, but this is a very heavily armored block of spearmen and heavy swordsmen who are shielded. This is not going to do anything. They're just going to kind of bounce right off. So if they wanted to get better value, they should definitely be going elsewhere. Like I said, my personal opinion would have been to take the pikes and the heavily armored spearmen and back them up with Sartor and Dorado, send them against these so that they're kind of pinned in place, then use my missile units to flank here and to lend support to the Easterlings, who are still fighting very, very valiantly, and not doing, you know, too bad. But it's starting to kind of turn around a little bit here. I don't think there's much remaining of Toll and Gauerhof. I think that they've probably been completely defeated at this point. All Shredded Dragoons hanging out over here. Some Huscarlo are still remaining. But yeah, if there was just a little bit of Toll and Gauerhof left, that would be really nice. Scouts of Egloris have now been brought forward over here, and things are going to start to turn around really quickly. Once the rear charges and things like that begin to go in. So we've got some spoilers there who are already on the verge of routing, and they just so desperately need reinforcements. Company of Prince Gwindor, yeah, this is the right call here for sure. Archers of Taladiernan probably aren't going to do too much. These marksmen need to be like activated, and they need to be like shooting, you know, from like here, like over where these swordsmen of Taladiernan are, all the way down the line, getting that beautiful enfilade. So a little bit of a tactical misstep there. That being said, they could be used to great effect against things like the Rangers or these marksmen or the Tyrion Lysdanen, but I think it's a little bit... It might be a little bit too late. The Easterlings are managing to effect a bit of a breakthrough, which is nice, but I don't think that's going to last for too much longer. Scouts of Egloris and other things like that managing to get in behind their lines. More reinforcements need to be brought over. Marksmen now firing, not too sure what they're shooting at. Yeah, this is a pretty juicy target for sure. I don't know. That's not the most effective use of these marksmen. This is a way better firing solution. You can just be shooting, you know, directly into the back of that mid line, and it just puts so much pressure. And I think maybe he sees that, so he's starting to move over the marksmen. So that's good to see. Right here. Yep, this is the right call, bringing in those heavily armored units, because they could slug it out with them forever. I would still be bringing, you know, swordsmen and all that stuff over into this direction to try and either distract or deter some of the cavalry, and this is where it gets really ugly. Yeah, this is what I was kind of fearing for, like, the entirety of this. So these things have managed to break through, doing just fabulous. Fabulous so far, holding their own against basically two armies. But elsewhere... You know, here they're starting to get collapsed in upon by some of these flanking units that have now finished dealing with the cavalry, dealing with what remains of Toll and Gauerhof, so reinforcements are quite desperately needed over there. The Archers of Taladiernan should probably just fight these Welsh Riders, honestly. There's like 3 or 4 of them. They could kill them off pretty easy. Yeah, it's a nice little enfilade. Some of these swordsmen are going to manage to kind of break through the line here, which is good. But yeah, right here, the Company of Prince Gwindor are doing okay. I think the R20 should be brought over here because they're capable of dealing with just through brute strength the Aron Kier Lim. Looks like... Oh no, there goes the Easterling General. That's terrible. Terrible news. Or maybe that's the Falas General. And the Balar Spearmen being overwhelmed here by this Nargothrond Phalanx. It's just... The Falas Phalanx looks very impressive, and it is quite high quality, but Nargothrond is just a king of that particular area. So, surprisingly enough, Belegost is able to muscle his way through here in a fairly record time. And now he might be able to continue kind of rolling things up a little bit yet. And there goes, I think the Toll and Gauerhof General, which is the Donathan LeBlanc, are running down. Company Prince Gwindor being sort of pushed in here, pushed in upon on several sides. And this is where it's all going to kind of come crashing down. This flank needed to be like maintained for sure. Ooh, a nasty charge there from the Scouts of Egloris. It's kind of scything through the Company of Prince Gwindor. They will fight to the death, so they're going to be a roadblock that's going to be quite hard to deal with. Nargothrond has managed to break through on the other side, but yeah, they're surrounded basically on 3 sides. This is going to be all over but the Cryan, I believe. And again, because of how well Nargothrond has done here, like you can see it. You can see the possibilities, right? Where they would have been able to like do this and still support elsewhere and very, very much likely win this battle. just off the back of like the weight of numbers and the survivability of those Nargothrond troops if they were able to support the Easterlings. But unfortunately, Lord of Belegost was a little bit slow getting over here. And now Marksmen of Nargothrond are being kind of shut down here, which is one of his few remaining aces in the hole. And it's all over but the Cryan at this point. We're going to go ahead, turn things up to, let's say, about 2 times speed. Our 20 more Megillah definitely still in there, and if they can get behind and really start dealing damage to the Marines of Anglaris, they might be able to rout them off. More reinforcements are coming. We've got Marksmen of Balar. Looks like he's going to try and shut them down with some swordsmen. But the Marksmen, despite being archers, they do have a bit of a cut above the swordsmen in terms of quality, and certainly in terms of survivability, which is huge. Yeah, so Nargothrond still holding their own. It's a relatively close game. Scouts of Anglaris going for that rear charge. I don't know if Belegost is going to see it in time. And I think they might just sprout off here. Our 20 more Megillah might have something to say about that. They do give +10 in a small radius. Looks like Belegost is trying to get them in behind here, potentially, and maybe rout some of these units off. They're going to get charged down by the Scouts of Anglaris, who quickly double back. Wardens here are coming to stop them and surround them. And that's going to be bad news for the R20 more Megillah. Of course, they do like fighting in crowds. Like, it's easy for them to get, kills, and with the animations and the way that they work, they're temporarily invincible while they're doing the paired animations. So it can work out nicely, but they will be slowly kind of driven back over time. Now a lot of some routing. Oh, maybe that's a bit of a breakthrough there. Or they were trying to push through and it's just not working. And it's just a slow death here for the Nargothrond forces. You can see that grind quality, like they're still winning in a lot of places. Oh, nasty rear charge there.
The battle is very much in our favor. Victory will be ours.
They are still winning in some places, but yeah, it's really all over but the Cryan at this point. Slowly being driven down and hemmed in. And this is going to be the end for the noble forces of Finrod Felagund. Doing well. Better than you'd expect pikes who get flanked like this. But it's only a matter of time. 20 more Megillah are in there, and it's just a small little bristling hedgehog of spears that's just ever shrinking.
Our army is tiring.
Everyone's starting to get tired, they're surrounded. And that's basically game over for these Nargothrond forces. Says that they're winning, they're kind of able to fight back to back. And it does make a difference. 10% or so difference here between the two sides. Because of how close it was, even with those big tactical mistakes, like you can see that the red team kind of had that comp advantage.
The battle is very much in our favor.
They had a lot of opportunities to turn this game around, and there were obviously some errors that could have been capitalized on, such as putting pressure on the falas, because they didn't move over early. They only started to move over once Doriath has started to move over, and things are starting to go very poorly for Steward on the other side. And that's when Nargothrond should have been moving forward, recognizing that, kind of reading the room, and getting in their face and not letting them do that, or at least preventing them from doing that in the great numbers that they ultimately moved over to support them. And the same could be said for the Easterlings as well, moving forward with their halberdiers. But at the end there, it still could have been turned around, even with the Easterlings having that halberd line intact and all the despoilers and everything. I think it still could have been turned around if Nargothrond was able to get up in time. So that's probably the biggest issue there. 87 to 99, so about an 8% or so difference. Still a really nice, really close game. Let's see what Steward managed to do with his army here. So Dower Warda did well, Walshrider did well. All the Dower Warda did well. They're just a really high quality unit. It's hard to kind of flub with them. Huskar Lar, wow, that's impressive numbers right there. Those were used extremely well. Dismounted Mardrot didn't really do a whole lot. They kind of just got swept away, as did a lot of the Freyswear. Walshrider Dragoons, the dismounted detachments, particularly impressive given that they only have about 50 or so men in the unit, so they definitely paid for themselves. Yeah, ultimately a really good game. Relatively close down there at the end, and we've talked about the mistakes kind of to death here. So let's go and see the next round of the series. I will see you guys in just a few moments. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. This is going to be round 2 of this series, and we're going to be beginning with the purple team again as usual. That's going to be Steward of Dale again. He's playing as the Avari of Tawarim Dwinath, which I think is very appropriate since this is a faction that he actually created. And they're a little bit out of their element here, hanging out in the deserts of Anfauglith. But regardless, let's take a look at his army comps, then we'll pass to the next team. The Avari have brought some branch stalkers of the Green Sea, an infantry kind of chaff grinding unit. They do have some throwing daggers and things like that they can do a decent amount of damage with before they charge in. I don't think they've only really got just 2 daggers, but that suits them just fine because melee is where they can truly shine. Thorned Ancients of Tawarim Dwinath, technically classed as spearmen. I should probably change that to heavy infantry. Maybe that'll be something I do in the next batch. Lots of armor, lots of HP, not a ton of damage, and I think they're currently locked routes. So I don't believe that they can route any longer. But they're the sort of bulky, thorned bulwark of the Avari army, as many of their units are very fragile. The Thorned Ancients, however, are not that at all. 20 of them in the unit as well, combined with their formidable defensive stats and extra hit points, makes them very hard to get rid of. Over here, we have some of the Thorncasters of Tawarim Dwinath. They, as you might guess, toss thorns. They are a harassment javelin unit. They've got a little bit of extra ammunition as well, and like the other tree units in the Avari faction, they are a lot better armored than their elven counterparts, which makes them, in my opinion, in tandem with their bark skin bonus, which does give them a passive shield value, makes them the best harassment javelin in the game, bar none. They've got good numbers, not as high as some of the other units, but still really good. They've got a lot of damage, ammunition, and I think maybe even a little bit of extra range, and take that with their survivability in tow, they're, in my opinion, the best harassment javelin unit. Over here we have some of the Moss Stalkers of the Darkling Woods. They're going to be poison bowmen, who are also armed with some armor-piercing clubs in melee. That being said, they prefer to fight in the woods. And actually, it's worth noting that the Thorncaster and Thorned Ancient units will take penalties in the desert, so they're not going to be as effective, which means the elves are going to have to pick up a little bit more of the slack. So the Moss Stalkers here, relatively fragile. They do have a small shield value as well, which keeps them alive. And you can bring, I think, in total of 4 of them, as it is the only dedicated archer that the Avari have. More of the Thorncasters here, in behind them. Second unit there of the Moss Stalkers, and then we find the second unit of the Thorned Ancients. A little bit of a, perhaps atypical Avarin battle line. We have some of the Hosts of the Withered Ash here. These are going to be the legendary company. You can actually bring 2 of them. It's the only legendary company you can bring 2 of. They are locked morale, 2-handed spearmen. They can also fight in formation, and they are very scary against monsters and things like that. They're going to be mixed in with the Bow Wards, which they're sort of the legendary variant of. And together, it's a fairly hard to break down front line, although one with not a lot of damage or punch behind it. Over here in the back, we've got some Shades of the Guarded Path. This is the General's bodyguard for the Avari of Tawarim Dwinath. They are medium infantry, which is about as heavy as you can get with the Avarin Elven units. In behind them, we're going to find some Rangers of the Hidden Path with their frightening beast masks. These are the Hunter Javelin units, so they've got a good amount of ammunition, a little bit more than your average Hunter Javelin. I think they've got 1 more. And they also have that high base damage, and it maybe poison? I could be wrong. I don't know if they have poison or not. Yeah, so moving on over here, we've got some First Refusers. These are a sling unit with poison, so they will deal morale damage. They've also got higher base damage and an armor-piercing projectile, which is nice. In addition to, they are relentless, and they dual-wield swords when engaged in melee. I think they can still route, though. Yeah, I don't think that they're locked morale or anything like that. So they don't kind of combine all of the utility into one little basket, and they are very fragile and low in number. They don't have... Well, they have a small shield value, I think, from bark skin because they're sort of more attuned with nature than some of the other elven units. But, yeah, very, very fragile, especially to missiles. Even cheap archers can basically disable this unit, making the high price tag essentially a waste of money. That being said, in the right circumstances, they can do very, very well, and they are able to hide anywhere like many of the other Avaran units. More Rangers of the Hidden Path hanging out here with their poison javies. Okay, yeah, they do have poison jabs because you can see the little green-tipped poisonous javelins on the end of them. We have Rex playing the Guarded Realm of Doriath again. He's got some marksmen of Region, so we're mixing it up a little bit from the previous composition. Rangers of the Girdle, Axguard of Region, they're going to be fully upgraded, and they're going to be sort of the main line. Well, supporting the main line anyway, of Shield Bearers. Then we've got some Harassment Javs detachments of the Spear Host of the Girdle out in front. They also have Poison Javs, more Shield Bearers, more Axguard, and some Kuthalim on the field today, which maybe means that they're expecting some monsters. We've got Donathan Mablung here as well, two-handed Maceman, multiple HP. And then in the back we've got some Spear Host of the Girdle as a reserve unit, and probably to help screen the back line. Warriors of Region as we move over here, catapults, and I think that basically does it for the Doriath army. Oh no, never mind, we've got some more Warriors of Region over there as well. So very widely spaced. We may have some of the hidden Outriders somewhere as well, but we'll see that as we move in to the game later. So, switching it up a little bit here. The House of Finarfin this time around is going to be played by Alexander 10Q, and we saw their legendary last stand in the previous round. Again, they can be very, very potent, even on the offensive, because of how just tanky they are. They can just weather a storm really, really well. And even if they get surrounded, they can still, fight and be fairly effective. So, Sartor Findorado, Company of Prince Gwindor, which is a legendary company for the House of Finarfin, named after, you guessed it, Prince Gwindor, whose impetuous charge kickstarted the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. They are locked morale, fear-causing. They are impetuous, so they will occasionally charge without orders, which I think is hilarious. And they also have an increased charge value and a little bit better armor than the Swordsmen of Talathirnan counterparts, but they do not have, of course, their speed, their ability to hide, nor do they have their javelins. Arquini Mormagilmaw on the field as well. Going to be pretty nice. I'm thinking, based on the amount of hard target jabs and the Kuthalim and stuff like that, and the Arquini, that we're probably going to have some monsters across the field there. So we'll go ahead and we'll see that in a minute. Defenders of Talathirnan here, these are Hunter Javelins. They used to just be a medium spear unit that you could bring like 3 or 4 of, but now you can only bring 2, and they have decreased stats from being skirmishers, but of course they have those deadly, deadly javelins. Front line here composed of Swordsmen of Talathirnan, a whole bunch of them. Also have a catapult here, some Wardens of Nargothrond out front. Another unit here of the Wardens of Nargothrond, and of course a couple of units of the Marksmen of Nargothrond. So, popping across the field here, we have the army of Gondolin being commanded by Lord of Belegost. He's got some Knights of the Golden Flower, just one unit of them there. Very deadly Lancers, and unlike most Lancers, they actually don't take penalties against elephants because of... It's a little bit of a nod to Glorfindel in his legendary fight with the Balrog. And the other Golden Flower unit is very, very strong against elephants and things like that as well. So this time around, Red Team bring in their own catapult, the Hidden City of Gondolin, and the Gate Guards of, I believe, Bronze here with those red bladed axes, you can see. Going to be on the field today. Also, quite a lot of them. They're medium axemen after the fact, so they're actually, really good infantry. Shield Bearers of the Tower composing the front line. Spearmen of the Swallow out front. They're I think we talked about them a little bit in a previous video, where they're like a hybrid unit. So they've got a little bit less ammunition, but they are also spearmen, and they have some additional melee defense bonuses that other skirmisher hybrids won't be able to have access to. And behind them, we have the Retainers of the King, who may be getting a nice little model upgrade in the near future. Lords of the Golden Flower. This is the other Golden Flower unit that I spoke of. Very, very strong against elephants, and they're 3 HP. They're one of the few Elven 3 HP units, and outside of the Maiar and things like that. And they can just blender lord their way through things. So like many of the Monster Hunter units, they are relentless, so they can't just be knocked over and ignored by elephants. And yeah, they're just nasty. Just nasty. Really heavily armored. I think you can give them an armor upgrade as well. And then we've got some Armors of the Hammer. So it looks like there's 2 units of Armors of the Hammer. They are fear-causing, really heavily armored. You can give them 2 armor upgrades, which I think brings them to around 14 or 15. Extremely hard to break down. They do have a little bit less melee defense. But yeah, nasty, nasty unit, especially while flanking, and their model is just tops. In the back here, which is perhaps a strange place for some of these Guardsmen of the Harp to be, we have the Guardsmen of the Harp, of course. They're mostly meat shields. They've got pretty decent melee defense. They're quite cheap, as many of the Gondolin mid-tiers do get like a flat percentage price reduction to help them afford some of their more expensive, heavier units, which are more expensive than usual. They're easy to chevron, easy to upgrade. They're just really nice. The Guardsmen of the Harp, super cost-effective. Yeah, not a bad thing to have at all. Gallants of the White Wing here as well, and then we're going to round off the whole thing with a couple units of the Scouts of the Tree. And bar none, I would say the best slinger in the game. Now, there's not a ton of slingers. I think there's like maybe 3 or so other ones, but in terms of price efficiency and just overall stat line and numbers and things like that, the Scouts of the Tree are the best slinger. And one of the sort of aces in the hole that Gondolin can really hold on to. Over here we have another Gondolin army, so this is going to be commanded by y2k. He's got Armorers of the Hammer, he's got Shield Bearers of the Tower, and one thing to note about the Shield Bearers is that because of some special animations that we imported from Europa Barbarorum 2, they have this overhand spear attack, then they all sort of cluster together and get really, really close. So you actually can see, when you look at them in game, you can see multiple ranks attacking. So it essentially equates to being something of like a spear wall formation. Pardon me, but for one-handed spears, which is utterly unique amongst any faction in the game currently. Knights of the Golden Flower here as well, 2 units of, so a decent amount of cav on the field, like 3 units of Knights of the Golden Flower. Potentially very scary. There are a lot of like spears and stuff across the field, but that's something that they're definitely going to want to look out for. Now we've got Gallants of the White Wing, Spearmen of the Tower. The House of Tuor are actually quite nice. They're heavy swordsmen, but they have just huge melee defense values, and they also inspire nearby units, which I think is quite fitting given who they are and what the role they played during the fall of Gondolin. More Armorers of the Hammer over here as well, and then we've got a Trebuchet, which is, I don't know why. Some players like to bring the Trebuchet because the Halberdmen of the Gate of Silver are really nice, but in a field battle like this, like there's no point in having a Trebuchet because you're not going to hit anything with it. Their accuracy values are specifically tuned to be very effective against walls and formations, or not formations, but fortifications. Whereas, you know, their values versus infantry, it's pretty useless for the most part. Sometimes you get lucky, but for the most part, it's not really going to do a whole lot. So that's going to careen overhead and probably not hit too much. But at the end of the day, you also do have some halberdsmen who are able to fight in formation, so that's nice. Retainers of the King over here as well. It's the bodyguard. And we have some Spearmen of the Swallow as well. I half expected it to be a third Gondolin army. Actually, probably not the worst idea in the world. Gondolin's very versatile. In any case, we have some more Easterlings on the field. They're going to be played by Buzzard again. Got some Fangs of the Faithless on the front line. We've got Marauders of Himring mixed in with the Halberdiers of Lothland, which is a little bit interesting. It does give you the ability to have a phalanx that can like spit axes at people, and you know, that hurts. Nobody likes that. But at the same time, I feel like the Marauders are maybe a little bit wasted because they are a Falx unit. So if you can, like best case scenario, you toss your axes, use your full ammunition store, and then you charge the Marauders in and follow that up with an advance from the Halberdiers. Potentially very good. I don't really see a lot of people doing that because there's a lot of like complexities involved and animations can sometimes be slow, etc. But still, interesting. Crotoni Marauders in the back. We got 1, 2, 3 units of them. They're cheap. They throw axes. Yeah, they basically do what is advertised on the tin. They've also got a little shield value there to help keep them alive. And yeah, en masse, they can be very, very good. Amberoni Honor Guard in the back here. Well, very, very good. They can be very efficient, especially against the right targets. So Amberoni Honor Guard in the back. Pillagers of Himring, which are basically the mounted version of the infantry we were looking at earlier. They can toss their axes, of course, and then they are Falksmen. So they get a bonus versus cavalry, which cancels out the malice that they receive for being missile cav. And they also have a very high charge value. So if you're able to flank with these guys, they can hit so hard, hit like absolute trucks. If you're able to charge them into, say, lower skilled units, like lower tier troops, or axemen and things like that, again, they can hit very, very hard. It's really all about getting the right engagements with a unit like the Pillagers of Himring. And behind, we have at least one unit of Salamandrian Guard, and then a whole bunch of units over here. So a couple units of Warband of Lothland, second company of the Salamandrian Guard, and then we got some Sons of Ulfang. So I don't think we're going to see any... Yeah, I don't think we're going to see any hidden units here. I would be surprised. But maybe. Who knows? Maybe there's something hiding in the back here. So that should be sort of the length and breadth of these armies. Let's go ahead and jump into the battle. Ah, yes, of course. And there's one thing that we did miss from y2k's army is a couple of units of the Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch. Super, super nice. Very much a Archer Supremacy unit. I think we talked about them a little bit in one of our previous games. Ooh, some catapult shots flying overhead. Doesn't look like they hit much. Oh, never mind. That's the Trebuchet. Yeah, see, it's not going to hit literally anything. Meanwhile, these catapults are going to open fire here. Oof, on the Gondolin army. Yeah, a lot of like loose formation units here. They're actually going to take down one of the Gondolin catapults. And some indecision, perhaps, amongst the Gondolin army here. You should, I mean, just shoot at something, right? When you're under fire like this, just shoot at anything. And it'll be just fine. You just want to get some value off of the thing before the opposing artillery piece manages to take theirs down. Looks like a holding force being left here from the Spearmen of the Swallow, in the form of the Spearmen of the Swallow and some Shield Bearers of the Tower along with that catapult, whereas everything else is being used to kind of reinforce the other contingent of the hidden city. It's sort of looking like this is just going to be a little bit of an advanced skirmish phase for quite some time. Mosstalkers positioning themselves over here. They're going to have no problem, even with their fairly limited ranged options, in bullying a lot of that Easterling army. Branchstalkers, Shades, Rangers, all that stuff. It's like they might be brought forward here to try and push their way through the warband. And the Easterlings, yeah, they don't have too many options there unless some of their allies decide to come over and give them a bit of a hand. That being said, Avari are pretty weak to cav, so there is the possibility of some really aggressive play here early on. I don't see any like bow wards or anything like that, so there is the possibility of just getting out here with the Pillager Cavalry and with the Salamanders and, you know, maybe some throwaway infantry to sort of delay reinforcements and then just sweep these guys away. At the very least, they could certainly do a decent amount of damage to some important Avaran units. And the Pillagers, at the very least, the Himring Pillagers are not super expensive, so they can be thrown away and used to inflict some damage on those tree units for sure. Oh, nasty shot there into the Wardens of Nargothrond. Is probably a better option, I would think. Ooh, nice. Cleaving through some of the bodyguard there. Yeah, that would definitely be one of the better options. See if they got another one. Oh, nasty. Ooh, going for that general snipe potentially. I don't know if Turin's in there. Indeed he is. Came very, very close to death, the poor lad. Wardens pushing forward. Warriors of Region are right there. Shield Bearers of the Tower probably don't want any of this. And I think, yeah, like Gondolin splitting their army like this, like why, and like having no sort of like ace in the hole or anything. Spearmen of the Swallow could be used, you know, from that vantage point to like make the sacrifice of these spearmen, you know, at least worth it. And maybe some of the scouts as well. But this is looking silly to me. This just seems like throwing away one's army. This is kind of clever though, disrupting that charge from the Axemen, wearing down the warriors and just not letting them get that charge value off. Could be followed up here with an attack from the Shield Bearers. Might be worth it. Knights of the Golden Flower. Definitely some opportunities here for... I would go into the Swordsmen for sure. I don't know if I would go after the Axemen. I think that they'll sort of break themselves on the Shield Bearers. That being said, it's a bit of a safer option. Yeah, he's going to definitely cleave some skulls in twain there. But it is going to bring him, you know, into the firing range of some of these Swordsmen of Tal'Dira. I personally would have gone for clearing chaff rather than dealing with the warriors, because I think that the ability to do that is already present. And now, I mean, the whole army hasn't really come forth here. There are some possibilities of, like, you know, skirmishing down some of these units. Shooting the warriors certainly would be, you know, a good plan. Now the knights are kind of just back there. Yeah, they need to be, like, out and moving and, like, doing something at the very least. And then maybe using the shield bearers a bit more proactively. Like, these spearmen detachments could have been, like, very easily pinned, right, by shield bearers of the tower. Wouldn't really matter as much if some of these other units were brought forward. I mean, if you just gotta make the best of an ugly situation, and I think that we're not really doing that right now. And there's not really any attempt to kind of rescue this force, and they could hold out and really make this worth it. The Gauntlet player here, Lord of Belegost, seems to be perhaps plagued with a little bit of indecision. And now his Knights of the Golden Flower are just kind of sitting there, and some Wardens of Nargothrond are bearing down upon them. So, yeah, now there's too many pieces at play here. There was definitely an opening previously to maybe take down either some of the Kuthalim or clear out some of the chaff from the swordsmen of Talathirnin, and that could have been used to open up further holes, right? So you know, sweep away half this unit in a charge, and then force path your way in behind, and then suddenly you're kind of into the honeypot, and you can do some pretty serious damage. Now, I don't know what's going on here. It's like a charge against nothing, and then we're just going to pull out and not really do anything. And there's no attempt from his allies and their cavalry or anything to sort of capitalize on this, and we're just deftly skirmishing with some of the spear host and things like that here, instead of maybe, you know, sending an archer or something over here to help deal with some of these stalkers. I don't really think Dordiath has any archers aside from the marksmen and the Kuthalim, so I'm not sure why we're kind of wasting ammunition on shielded infantry from a great distance who are in loose formation. Seems a little bit strange to me. Oh, possibility for a nice charge here, but Alexander's going to be on top of it, and it's really just going to kill, you know, one or two of these guys. And now those armor-piercing shots are coming in from the Kuthalim. Yeah, I think that this, at this point, is lost. This is a lost cause. Though there is an opening here, a big opening for some of these Knights of the Golden Flower. Like, they could just sweep through these units. There's no spearmen here at all. This is a massive opening that could be exploited, and it seems like only Lord of Belegost at the moment is doing it. Salamandrine Guard, some Knights of the Golden Flower. Okay, so now we're kind of jumping onto this and, like, seeing the opportunity here. Oh, please. Oh, they're going to go through for the Kuthalim? Well, that's an option. Really going for broke with that. It's going to impact the Company Prince Gwindor, and they're actually going to rout there from the fear and from being outnumbered and attacked from the rear and stuff like that, which is unfortunate. I wouldn't have done that. I don't think I would have gone for the Kuthalim. I think there was a huge opportunity here to sweep aside a lot of the swordsmen and other things like that. And now, I mean, where's the other cavalry here? I think we're starting to rout at this point. Yeah, we're definitely starting to rout. So, I mean, percentage-wise, it turns out to be about the same, but in terms of, like, the quality that was lost here, 3 against the shield bearers on a front line can be something that's, like, it can turn the tide of an engagement, and now we're gonna, I don't know what we're doing here. There was just so much missed opportunity, some options for some really great plays, and yeah, they just weren't capitalized on, and now there's just all this indecision, and we're just sort of floating around, losing models, not doing anything. Very unfortunate to see, although I think y2k is a little bit of a newer player anyway, so I probably shouldn't be too harsh on him, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of missed opportunities here. These warriors, for example, could have been shredded, I think, in like a... Oh, there goes the dogs again. Sorry about that. The warriors could have been, you know, more heavily reduced. There is a lot of swordsmen of Talathirnin that could have died off. Company of Prince Gwindor, like, there was that huge... We saw it earlier. There was that huge gap that was just, like, begging to get cab charged, and just nothing was done. All the wardens and the spearmen and stuff were committed. There was just a huge space, and nobody was really around to kind of punish them for it. Very unfortunate. I think Rex is probably going to suicide the spearman there, just try to get some like easy, cheap kills. We'll see. Meanwhile, over here, nothing is happening for the time being. But this, yeah, like this would be a great time to, you know, bring some infantry over, bring some cavalry over, really punish these guys for, you know, kind of being out here in the open, like tie down the spears, like all of that stuff could have been done to sort of provoke a major engagement here in support of the shield bearers of the tower, who are unfortunately now deceased, and just make this into a bloodbath for the purple team. But there was just no attempt to do that, no initiative taken. So really unfortunate to see. Salamandrine Guard are kind of just in the back, just picking it at really nothing. Like they're shooting at Thorned Ancients. I get it, you know, they're fiery arrows, they're trees, but mechanically it doesn't really work that way. And they're loose formation, they're heavily armored. It's kind of a waste of ammunition. So I'm not too sure what's going on here. A better target if you want to shoot at anybody, I suppose, would be the Warriors of Region. They're just kind of standing out there like monkeys, just waiting to get shot, you know? Yeah, I'm not sure what the point of this is. Like, most of these arrows aren't even hitting. Complete waste of the limited ammunition that the Salamandrine Guard have. Knights of the Golden Flower over here. Belegost, I don't know, maybe he wants some revenge or something. It's gonna hurt. It'll definitely hurt the Spear Host. Yep, he'll hurt. There's not many of them. Warriors of Region moving over in support. And there's just, yeah, these knights are just super out of position. I just don't know what we're trying to do here. Maybe go for the marksman, but they're in like the center of a cloud of a whole bunch of units, and now there's some stalkers of Towering Falroth that we didn't see earlier because they were hiding and that are being brought forth. Like, I get what he's doing. It's just so obviously telegraphed that there's no way that he'll pull it off unless the opposite team is just totally out to lunch, and there's really no distraction for them. There's no other big engagement they can use to sort of like divide their attention, and you can see them now collapsing in. And Sartorf and Dorado going in for, you know, maybe an envelopment here and just preventing the Knights of the Golden Flower from getting anywhere, and they're just surrounded. And that mobility they've really got nowhere left to go if they're not careful here. Maybe he's going to go for a gen snipe, you know, that might be sneaky. Alexander did kind of come out here with his general, but I don't think he's going to be able to pull that off. I don't think Alexander's going to let him do it. And yeah, it's just very confusing moves here on the part of the red team so far. Very, very confusing. Meanwhile, over here, it looks like not a lot is going on. They're sort of being... This seems to happen a lot on Distillation of Envabalith, where, you know, things go wrong and then people sort of get pushed towards this area where there's, you know, lots of cliffs and things like that. So maybe that's something we need to fix in the future, but now they're just sort of boxing themselves in. Yeah, Scouts of the Tree would have been great to bring over there, and so many questionable decisions. I just don't understand it. But yeah, let's go ahead and run fast forward a little bit here. It looks like things are kind of slowing down for the time being. The Knights of the Golden Flower are going to manage to get out of there, and it looks like there's the possibility of some countercharging, but like, yeah, the Warriors of Region are just going to get in there, and because of the spacing, that charge isn't going to carry through the Spearmen into the Warriors, and they're going to get that charge off, and a lot of those Knights are just going to end up dying for no reason, like charging into the front of the Spearmen. Don't understand why they would do that. Like a limited counterattack here from the Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch, and they can do pretty well, especially against some of these like tired and winded and like outnumbered units. Like the Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch may not do too badly. A bunch of Spearmen, like what is this? Knights of the Golden Flower out here. These are easy targets. They could go right for the Stalkers and just destroy them. Marksmen will shoot them, but honestly, it clears the wing of like a whole bunch of chaff. And I think that Alexander recognizes that, and now he's going to actually start to pull back some Some fire here coming in from one of the 2 catapults on the opposite side, and they're sitting ducks, and they've allowed themselves to become sitting ducks, so I don't really have a lot of sympathy for them right now. Ooh, General Snipe? No, not quite. Yeah, there just needs to be something aggressive done here, and there's every opportunity to do it, but instead we're just opting for passivity because either we've given up or we just can't recognize the opportunities in front of us. What do we got here? Belegost maybe going for the Marksman of Nargothrond. Got a good shot here. Do it! No? Yeah, this could be ugly. Yeah, it's gonna hurt. A really nice charge there from Lord of Belegost. And this is the kind of stuff that they could have been doing the entire time, right? Let's see if they manage to get out of there. Well, they might rout. Yeah, they are going to rout. Killed off some of the marksmen. That's always nice. Unfortunately, you're going to rout right through some heavy spearmen, so I don't think he'll be getting this unit back. Well, maybe he will. These Knights of the Golden Flower have now turned their back to Marksmen of Nargothrond and are getting shredded. These Spearmen of the Swallow and some Shield Bearers of the Tower that came back from routing, trying to rescue the Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch that were sent in without any sort of support. Like, I don't understand this. It almost looks like I'm watching new players play this. I don't understand, you know, the logic and the thought behind a lot of these choices. Like, this is formidable, yes. What do they have at their disposal? They've got a ton of armorers, right? They've got a couple of king units, and they've got a bunch of lancers here. Like, they could counterattack, take this fight to them. And most of these, it's like spearmen, right? Heavily armored spearmen. There's not a ton of like missile units and things like that. Some of the swordsmen, but that's going to bounce off. And most of these heavily armored infantry are going to be nonplussed by that anyway. Oh, looks like he did get the Knights of the Golden Flower back. Like, they've still got the cav advantage. They should be using it. When you have the cav advantage like this, like, you should be aggressive. I'm not sure Gallants of the White Wing are going to pair up super nice against the Wardens, but, like, you know, rallying the Armorers and the Retainers of the King and taking the fight to these guys here, like, this is a possibility. This is something that they could really make do with. And then, you know, using, say, scouts and their missile units and all that other stuff. But instead they're just going to abandon another good, you know, potentially good position. There is an advance here from the Doriath army, and that is something to definitely be concerned about, but, like, you know, bring some of the Easterlings over. They don't need to have all this stuff here. You know, bring some of the Croatoan Marauders, bring some of the support units, rally the Armorers, but instead we're just going to fall back here and kind of paint ourselves into a corner when we have, you know, all of the options to take to the offensive and to really put the hurt on a lot of these units. So yes, you'll have to deal with this. Leave your chaff units, leave like your shield bearers and things like that over in the center, and they can sort of fight off a lot of these units and put up a good fight, and the Easterlings can send over support on their side. And then just rally your best troops and come at these units. Use the cav aggressively. I mean, they've still got a huge cav advantage. Use it all aggressively, but, you know, you could probably sweep away a lot of these units. It's like Marksmen of Nargothrond. We saw what one understrength unit did to the Marksmen with one good charge, right? Like, they killed, it was like 80 men in the unit. They killed like 30 men out of those 80 men with like one charge. That's how good the Knights of the Golden Flower are. And even though they've been mismanaged in this game, there's still enough of them to make a difference, but we're just being so passive and just letting ourselves get painted into a corner that I just don't understand. I don't understand it. And I don't know what's going on over here now. Lord Belegost is sort of moving around. I've given up trying to guess strategy. I don't think there is a strategy. There doesn't seem to be a lot of communication between both sides here. So I'm going to go ahead and put it into 6 times. We're going to try and make our way through this. Knights of the Golden Flower being drawn back. Like, what's the point here? You know? They're going to go after Thorncasters with, like, Mosstalkers and other things. Like, I get that these units are potentially easy prey for cav, but, like, they've got other units that can do that job. The Trebuchet crew would be fabulous at taking down some of the Thorncasters. Although I do appreciate the aggressive nature of this. It is actually going to kill them off. They want to get out of there as quickly as possible. Beautiful, beautiful charge there. It's going to carry through into the Moss Stalkers. And they're going to have a little bit of support, but you want to get out of there as quickly as possible. Yeah, nicely done. Side through a good amount of the Thorncasters. I mean, I have my foot in my mouth. That was a good charge. Definitely wide open. And now they're going to cover that with some warriors, but you know the damage has kind of been done here. The Thorncasters definitely lost about half the unit there. Some of these Thorned Ancients are going to be out of position, and they're going to get charged down by some Salamandrine Guards. So a nice little victory here for a team that desperately needed some little victories. Wardens, all this stuff. Yeah, now they're bringing in like the catapult, and they're going to have just this crazy position to just bombard them. They've got no artillery. And they just kind of put themselves into a corner. It's just such a shame to see. Maybe they're demoralized by the previous defeat. I don't know. But this is definitely not the way to play. The way to play is what they were doing previously with the Knights of the Golden Flower. Just flattening people, looking for those openings. And there are these openings. Oh, I got it going on over here. Looks at the Easterlings. Get a nice little charge here. But if we're going to do this, I mean, we should probably bring forward some supporting units. Now, this would be a great opportunity for Croatoan Marauders, in fact. Now, the host of the Withered Ash and the Bow Wards here, they'd be, you know, pretty easy prey for some massed throwing axe fire. Especially while you're running sort of interference and like making a distraction of your Salamandrine with your Salamandrine Guard. You know, that'd be the time to do it. Oh, some nice shots there. Precognition almost, as they toss over the top of that cliff face. What we got going on here? Looks like we're shooting the Thorncasters. Probably not the play. I'd be going after the Moss Stalkers, maybe. Or not even using my ammunition at this point, or just like using one unit to soak up ammo and deal a little bit of damage in return. Yep, they're literally right there, and they can just sweep these units. But instead they're going to take that into the Lords of the Golden Flower, of all things. Oh no. Oh, I forgot we had the Lords of the Golden Flower. Imagine if they were brought over here, right? Like they would, you know, get them into the Defenders or something, and they're going to destroy that unit. Arquini Moor McGilwa would obviously be a bit of a pain to deal with, but what we got over here? Marksman of Nargothrons, Sartor Findorado, some mauled Thorned Ancients. There's like one unit of spears over here. There's still time. That's what's really killing me here. And I don't know what's going on with this. y2k maybe hasn't noticed this or something, but there's still an opportunity to just push and potentially decapitate the Finarfin General. Like, there's an opportunity here to just get through. This is the weakest point in the line. They can, you know, turn things around and then just go up the center, go up against a lot of these swordsmen here with like the armorers and stuff like that, and the Gallants of the White Wing as well. They'd match up quite nicely against the swordsmen. You know, lead the charge with the retainers, with the Lords of the Golden Flower, who are just getting shot. They're just standing out here, just getting shot. No attempt to save them or move them or literally do anything. We're just going to sit there. Croatoan kind of chilling in the back right now. Scouts of the Tree. I keep forgetting about them. Like, they would be a useful tool over there as well to sort of zone out some of the skirmishers that are just being such a pain right now. They don't need to be here. The Croatoan Axemen are perfectly capable of doing this. And now I think they're going to end up getting smashed into, because Belegost isn't really paying attention to these units right now. Easterlings are trying to get in there and like save them. He's going to see it at like the worst possible time of the turnaround. Warband of Lothland. Yeah. That's crazy. This is a wild match for sure. Armors of the Hammer, Gallants of the White Wing. I don't know what happened to them, why they took so much damage so quickly, but yeah, the Armors of the Hammer will win this. Company of Prince Gwyndor are going to try and exploit a gap in the line here. This is just so painful to watch, and of course this is going to happen. They let them get over there with that catapult. Of course this was going to happen. They've got two catapults over there, and they let them get them into position. There's no aggression, no nothing. Yeah, they're definitely going to lose this, and I'll be a little bit harsh here. I would say they deserve to lose it. They had every opportunity in these last couple of games to just be aggressive, and they chose to be passive instead. And like that aggression would definitely have saved them and made like a huge difference here. But unfortunately, they sat back, and now they're in the worst possible position. Yep, now these units here are going to get flanked. That's by spearmen, so it doesn't matter too much. A nice like counter charge here, but still a little blobby. And there's this big, well-ordered sort of mass advancing, and Guardsmen of the Harp, they're going to like flank the spearmen, of course, which is what you want to have happen, but they're just going to get immediately counter-flanked, right? Possibility of maybe some routing here, that'd be lovely, wouldn't it? I don't think they're going to be able to do it in time. Company of Prince Gwindor, again, going to do what Doriath is doing to Belegost over on the other side. And there's a lot of units still kind of just hanging out in the back here. There's this big commitment into this little thing here. Scouts of the Tree don't need to be here. Horotani Marauders definitely don't, you know, could be doing better here. You know, put one of them up on the hill or something, give them that extra little bit of range. These units here, I don't even think have had a chance to throw their projectiles yet. Fangs of the Faithless, you know, doing damage here to something. First Refusers, that's a good target for the Fangs of the Faithless, for sure. Rangers of the Hidden Path. Other things like that. These Warband are going to crack under this pressure, though. There's not enough substantial stuff over here. A lot of that is now moved over to this front line. And, like, yeah, it's a good idea, but, like, something should have been left behind here to try and help them out. I'd try them help them out over here, and just something to act as like a second line, you know? Scouts of the Tree, dithering, not really doing anything substantial. Frontal cavalry charge here into some high-tier spearmen. Nice charge, though, from the Easterling infantry. Yep, it's going to bear fruit. Donath and Mablung are in there, though, so those units are not going to be able to last for very long, and they're basically just losing everywhere at this point. Yeah, there's no possibility of bringing this back. Down to the White Wing, doing just fine. Spearmen of Nargothrond overwhelming the Shield Bearers. It's probably pretty even, I would think. Sword of Finderando are in there as well, but that's just a delaying engagement. It's stopping some of the Gauntlet infantry from being used elsewhere. Knights of the Golden Flower coming under fire by the Marksmen of Region. Not really useful. I don't even think this is a terribly important unit to the Doriath composition. Like, the Marksmen of Region are good for disruption and just like causing problems with their high mass and knocking things over. But the Knights of the Golden Flower are cavalry. You can't knock them over. Ooh, that's gonna hurt. Or maybe it won't. It kind of will. They are swordsmen, though, so they do have like nice high melee defense, and they're going to force path through them instead of getting out and cycle charging again. Maybe they want to try and get behind. That's probably what they're trying to do. Or get behind here and, like, you know, hammer and anvil, maybe free up the center. That'd be pretty smart, I think. So, you know, rout off some of these swordsmen here, get into the back of the wards of Nargothrond, like, do something. Instead, we're going to maybe go for the catapult. Or we're going to run out to the middle of nowhere and do nothing. I don't know. Anemic charge into the catapult. They did nothing. Instead of maybe going over here and like charging into the back of the wardens and trying to free some of the these troops up here, which could be used to, you know, maybe turn this fight around. Let's see how the Avari are doing. Avari and I want to call them Region or something, but that's not correct. The Easterlings actually doing really well. Again, we see the power of these Easterlings in this grind fight, and they're giving it to Doriath in a really big way. Over here, the missiles are kind of starting to take their toll, and the Avari weakness to missiles is definitely coming to the fore. Fangs of the Faithless probably should be shooting. I don't know. Yeah, the first refusers, that's definitely what my target would be. Same with the scouts. Good opportunity there to kind of crush these units. They're just trying to route through the marauders with the poison projectiles. Yeah, this is going to turn around and get ugly here, I think. And now things are starting to collapse into the Easterlings. The poor Easterlings! Twice in these games this has happened to them, and I feel terrible. The Easterling player and like their engagements and stuff it's good. They've been really good. We can just see the power of those Easterling units. But when they're being attacked from the rear and things like that, it's not tenable. Let's see what's going on over here. 69 to 55. Yep, the armorers are being kind of hacked apart here by the two-handed axes. There's a critical mass of Doriath troops over here. Marksmen firing into, I don't know what. Into the armorers. Maybe the Lords of the Golden Flower, probably. I think they're in there. Yep, still 17 of them. You know, they're not doing terrible. Retainers of the King. Spear Host. Things are starting to turn around over here somehow. But reinforcements are definitely needed, as these retainers are not going to be able to hold the line for too long. Shield Bearers of the Tower sort of surrounded. Marksmen of Nargothrond able to fire freely into them. Marksmen of the Heavenly Arch. Yeah, it's just a nightmare. A nightmare for everybody, really. And I think the result reflects that. There's like a 15% difference. We're going for like a sort of decapitating the snake, right? I think the Thingol is going to be in here. Yeah, you can see him in the back. I don't think it's gonna matter though, because this whole army here, like everything is just gonna crash down on what remains of this line here, which is already struggling, and then they'll rout, and then these guys will be completely surrounded, and this will be, you know, kind of pointless. But there's really not much that they can do. You know, just I guess get as many kills as you possibly can, so you feel a bit better at the end of the game. I know that I definitely do that. Easterlings, Halberdiers here have managed to win this fight, which is surprising, given how kind of hard put to it they were. Shield Bearers of Rhaegon in the back. There goes the Gondolin General. Don't know which one it is, but one of the two twin Turgons. Let's see if these guys can get their shit together and toss. No, apparently not. We're struggling. Yeah, we're gonna do it. We're just gonna be taking, you know, shots from the branch stalkers the whole time. And the Avari will manage to push their way through here with that initial force, and, you know, barring a little bit of extra reinforcements. There's a lot of deployment things here that could have been done way better. And the branch stalkers are gonna get in there, get countercharged a little bit by the Hroatani, but they're gonna massacre the Hroatani. I would be surprised if they took more than a dozen casualties clearing out this hill. There's a Hemring over here. They did pretty well against the spearmen. I think they killed about half the unit. Testament to their ferocity, certainly. Marksmen out of ammo. Yeah, it's just not enough of them. Someone's general is running away. Gondolin's been cleared out. Marksmen, warriors, all this stuff. Yeah, it's game over. It's game over. And the result definitely reflects that. It's like a 22% difference. And again, I feel like I've been very harsh on the red team, but I feel like that's kind of justified in this case, because there was just so much passivity and just so many opportunities and so many things that just simply could have been done better. A lot of units were thrown away, like 3 of the expensive Gondolin spearmen plus their catapult just thrown under the bus for literally no gain, no reason whatsoever. They sort of came out, I guess, even in percentages, but like it was just a complete waste of some really important units, which, as we saw here, could have been, you know, very useful. And even with that, there was just with the mistakes, sometimes with mistakes comes opportunity, and you know, there were opportunities and they were just ignored. So, nonetheless, you know, well played to both teams. They did some things really well, especially the red team. Those aggressive charges with the Knights of the Golden Flower early on, you know, that was pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be too mean, but like, I feel if I say like, you know, really well played, it's sort of a little bit disingenuous because there was some really big mistakes that were made, and I just hope that that's something that they're able to, you know, take into account and maybe learn from a little bit in the future. Yeah, but the comps were good. Like all those Knights of the Golden Flower against, you know, these three factions here, both of which don't have any cavalry. Like that could have been the decisive kind of winning thing. They just had to have, like, you know, the courage to do it. But I guess when you're backed into a corner and if you lose the game, you lose, then maybe you're less likely to take those risks. But I feel like at that point you should be more likely to take those risks. In any case, yeah, the purple team really did capitalize on all these mistakes. They surrounded them and bombarded them, and their positioning was good. And yeah, they spread out, they supported each other, and that's kind of what you expect to see in team games like this. Unfortunately, the other team was not able to do that as well. I don't think that they were in voice or anything like that, so maybe that was, you know, sort of their downfall here, is that they just weren't able to communicate with each other and, you know, ask for help easily and quickly. But yeah, so that's going to be the end of this. The Stewie Alexander, Captain Gervais team will be moving on to round 2, and then we're going to take a look at some of the more round 1 games. And then we'll move into round 2 from there next week. So in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully I wasn't too harsh on the other team. I think I was pretty fair about it, but yeah. I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.